The Senate will come to order. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Buck. Here. Senator Cannizzaro. Here. Senator Daley. Here. Senator Doñate. Senator Andera-Loop. Senator Flores. Present. Senator Goycochea. Senator Hammond. Here. Senator Hansen. Here. Senator Harris. Here. Senator Krasner. Here. Senator Lang. Here. Senator Neal. Here. Senator Wynn. Here. Senator Orenshaw. Here. Senator Pizzina. Present. Senator Scheibel. Here. Senator Sievers-Gansert. Here. Senator Spearman. Here. Senator Stone. Here. Senator Titus.
Let the record reflect there are 21 senators present. Please rise for the prayer by President Rajan Zed of the Universal Society of Hinduism in Reno and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Starting with Gayatri Mantra, which is considered the most sacred mantra of Hinduism, I shall be reading from ancient Hindu scriptures in Sanskrit, some as old as 1500 BCE. Om Bhurbhuvah Svaha Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yona Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who is inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamya Tamsoma Jyotirgamya Mrityor Mamratam Gamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Sakta Statam Karyam Karma Samachara Sakto Hyacharan Karma Parma Panoti Purusha Karma Neva Hi Samsiddhi Mastita Jankadya Loka Sangreha Mevapi Sampa Shankar Tumra Hasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless, one attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavtu, Saha Navbanaktu, Saha Viryan Karba Bahai, Tejasvi Navadita Mastu, Ma Vidbisa Bahai. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening. May no obstacle arise between us. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order of Business 3, reading and approval of the journal. By previous order of the Senate, the reading of the journal is dispensed with, and the President and Secretary are authorized to make necessary corrections and additions. Order of Business 4, reports of committees.
Mr. President, your Committee on Government Affairs, to which are referred Senate Bills numbers 20, 82, 105, 155, 185, 226, 246, 384, 391, 433, and 434 is had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Edgar Flores, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Health and Human Services, to which are referred Senate Bills numbers 118, 204, 280, 298, 385, and 435, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Fabian Doñate, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Judiciary, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 235, 243, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Melanie Scheibel, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 162 and 326, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator James Orenshaw, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, to which are referred Senate Bills numbers 140, 429, and 444, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Dina Neal, Chair. End of reports.
Order of Business 6, messages from the Assembly.
Assembly Chamber, Carson City, April 21, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed as amended Assembly Bills numbers 14, 49, 55, 70, 126, 127, 169, 171, 173, 175, 190, 193, 223, 256, 274, 275, 316, 318, 334, 342, 355, 356, 358, 373, 387, 392, 398, 407, 423, and 455. Signed, Carol Ayala-Sala, Assistant Chief Clerk of the Assembly. End of messages.
Order of business 9, Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that Senate bills numbers 25, 194, 251, 269, 318, 323, and 436 be taken from their positions on general file and placed on general file for the next for the last agenda for today.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bill number 26 be taken from its position on general file and placed on the Secretary's desk for the purposes of further discussion.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bills numbers 4, 23, 43, 211, and 261 be taken from the Secretary's desk and placed at the bottom of general file on this agenda.
If there are no objections, so ordered.
Senator Hammond has approved the addition of Senator Cannizzaro as a co-sponsor on Senate Bill 139. That concludes Order of Business 9.
Order of business 10, introduction, first reading, and reference.
Assembly Bill 14 by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary creates the Business Licensing Working Group, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 49 by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary revises provisions relating to criminal procedure, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 55 by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary revises provisions relating to unclaimed property, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 70 by the Assembly Committee on Natural Resources revises provisions relating to the use of certain fees for a game tag, refer to Natural Resources. Assembly Bill 126 by Assemblyman Wynn and Senator Wynn revises provisions governing business entities, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 127 by Assemblywoman Howdeggy revises provisions governing Medicare supplemental policies, refer to Commerce and Labor. Assembly Bill 169 by Assemblywoman Gorlow, etc., and Senator Cannizzaro, etc., revises provisions governing the labeling of feminine hygiene products, refer to Health and Human Services. Assembly Bill 171 by Assemblywoman Duran, etc., revises provisions governing public works, refer to Government Affairs. Assembly Bill 173 by Assemblyman Gray, etc., and Senator Daly, etc., revises provisions governing public works, refer to Government Affairs. Assembly Bill 175 by Assemblyman Urick, etc., revises provisions governing boards of trustees of school districts, refer to Education. Assembly Bill 190 by Assemblywoman Kasama revises provisions relating to elections, refer to Legislative Operations and Elections. Assembly Bill 193 by Assemblywoman Gonzalez, etc., and Senator Orenshaw, etc., revises provisions relating to custodial interrogations of children, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 223 by Assemblyman Carter, etc., and Senator Wynn revises requirements relating to collection agencies, refer to Commerce and Labor. Assembly Bill 256 by Assemblywoman Mosca revises provisions relating to work-based learning programs, refer to Education. Assembly Bill 274 by Assemblyman Wynn, etc., and Senators Dondero Loop, etc., revises provisions governing required instruction in financial literacy, refer to Education. Assembly Bill 275 by Assemblywoman Hardy, etc., and Senator Hammond, etc., revises provisions governing the sealing of criminal records, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 316 by Assemblyman Miller revises provisions governing motor vehicles, refer to Growth and Infrastructure. Assembly Bill 318 by Assemblyman Wynn, etc., and Senator Zanyate, etc., revises provisions governing certain providers of health care, refer to Commerce and Labor. Assembly Bill 334 by Assemblywoman Brown May revises provisions relating to insurance for motor vehicles, refer to Commerce and Labor. Assembly Bill 342 by Assemblyman Hibbets, etc., requires a cannabis establishment agent to take certain actions to verify the age of a consumer before selling cannabis or a cannabis product, refer to Commerce and Labor. Assembly Bill 355 by Assemblywoman Howdeggy, etc., revises provisions relating to firearms, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 356 by Assemblywoman Dickman, etc., and Senator Seaver-Scansard, etc., enacts provisions relating to mobile tracking devices, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 358 by Assemblyman Gray, etc., and Senator Stone revises provisions governing emergency medical services, refer to Health and Human Services. Assembly Bill 373 by Assemblywoman Gorlow, etc., revises provisions relating to deceptive trade practices, refer to Judiciary. Assembly Bill 387 by Assembly Committee on Natural Resources revises provisions relating to water, refer to natural resources. Assembly Bill 392 by Assemblywoman Kasama, etc., makes various changes relating to property, refer to Commerce and Labor. Assembly Bill 398 by Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor makes various changes relating to insurance, refer to Commerce and Labor. Assembly Bill 407 by Assemblyman Carter revises provisions governing the release of personal information by the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, refer to Growth and Infrastructure. Assembly Bill 423 by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs revises provisions governing meetings of a Board of Trustees of a school district, refer to Education. Assembly Bill 455 by the Assembly Committee on Revenue authorizes the imposition of a civil penalty by the Department of Taxation for certain violations relating to contraband tobacco products, refer to Revenue and Economic Development. End of Assembly Bills.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Assembly bills just listed be referred to the committees as listed on the agenda before you.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
That concludes Order Business 10.
Order Business 13, General File.
Senate Bill 14, introduced by Judiciary, makes various changes related to gaming. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 11, end of Section 11, end of bill.
Senator Orenshall.
Good morning, President. Senate Bill 14 authorizes the chair of the Nevada Gaming Control Board to approve persons associated with a deceased licensee or licensee who has been judicially declared disabled to temporarily engage in gaming activities without procuring a gaming license for such time as the chair deems necessary to settle the estate of the licensee. Persons granted such approval are required to comply with relevant statutory and administrative provisions. The bill also authorizes the Nevada Gaming Control Board to designate as bad debt any amount of debt it assigned to the state controller that the board determines is impossible or impractical to collect. If the state controller determines that it is impossible or impractical to collect such a debt assigned by the Nevada Gaming Control Board, the controller must request that the State Board of Examiners designate the debt as a bad debt. Any person authorized to receive a share of revenue from any slot machine operated on the premises of a licensee is liable to the licensee for a proportionate share of the license fee and is required to remit or credit the proportionate share to the licensee by a certain date. Finally, the bill exempts a person appointed as a gaming commissioner by the governor from certain provisions governing the employment of retired public employees.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the nays 0. SB 14 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 17, introduced by Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to regional transportation commissions. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 6, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Daley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 17 requires regional transportation commissions in counties with a population of 100,000 or more to establish an advisory committee regarding benches, shelters, and transit stops. The bill also expands the authorization of the commission to grant money to conduct research and develop projects that promote emerging transportation and transit technologies. Finally, the bill authorizes certain regional transportation commissions to establish and administer the Nevada Yellow Dot program.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Senate Bill 17. I've looked over this a few times, and it reduces the number of public members. It got rid of the terms, so there's no defined term for anyone who's appointed, and I could not find exactly how many members would be on this board as well. I think that that's up to the commission maybe itself. So I'm in opposition. Thank you.
Any other remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 13, the nays are 8. SB 17 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 104, introduced by Growth and Infrastructure, revises provisions relating to traffic offenses. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any remarks on the floor? I'm sorry, are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 5, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Okay, Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 104 removes the court's authority to suspend a person's driver's license or prohibit a person from applying for a driver's license due to a delinquent fine, assessment, or fee associated with a civil penalty imposed for a traffic violation. A person who is subject to such suspension or delay when this bill takes effect must have his or her license or ability to pay for such a license reinstated by the DMV at no cost and be notified. This does a lot of other things. This is a cleanup bill from several pieces of legislation that passed during the 81st regular legislative session. And this cleans up some of those provisions to make this bill more effective.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. 21 yeses, 0 nays. SB 104 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 184, introduced by Senators Spearman, Flores, Harris, and Krasner, revises the charter of the City of North Las Vegas. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 15, end of subsection 3, end of bill.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 184 makes various changes to the charter of the City of North Las Vegas, including increasing the number of wards in the city from 4 to 6, requiring the city manager to reside in the city, and that does not include the current city manager that's going forward. Requiring the city manager to prepare an annual diversity study and establish a supplier diversity program. Providing that the city attorney or an attorney with whom the city council enters into a contract to perform all or a portion of the duties of the city attorney may not opine or provide legal advice to the mayor or a council member on any issue or matter that does not directly relate to the official duties of the mayor or the city council member. And requiring the city manager to submit reports to certain legislative committees regarding vacant or leased space in the North Las Vegas City Hall, and report to the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections during the legislative interim regarding the redistricting of the wards. Provisions requiring a report of vacant or leased space in the North Las Vegas City Hall are effective upon passage and approval. Provisions related to adding 2 additional wards requiring the city manager to report certain information to the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections are effective upon passage and approval for the purposes of adopting ordinances, establishing the boundaries of the wards, and performing any preparatory administrative tasks, and on January 1, 2024 for all other purposes. All provisions of the bill are effective on July 1, 2023. Mr. President, I have a couple of things to say about this. And the first thing that I want to say is that this is a civil rights issue. And I want to say fervently that there was a pervasive rumor that really was a lie from the pit of hell. I am not carrying this bill to run for any of these offices. Don't want to do it. Second thing I want to say is it's not about me, and really it's not about anybody in this chamber. It really is about the people in North Las Vegas who don't have the same options that we do in terms of living arrangements and mobility. This is a bill that was 53 years in the making. Now, there will be some who will say, well, I disagree because it didn't go through the Charter Committee, and I will say this, well, it would have gone through the Charter Committee had the Charter Committee been called. But anyone who listened to the meeting, the hearing on this bill, heard several members of the Charter Committee saying they would have done this if they had had an opportunity to meet, but they did not. I liken that excuse because my father said anyone who wants to do something will find a way. Anyone who doesn't will find an excuse. So the excuse not to vote for this bill because it didn't go through the city charter I believe is akin to going to a community pool, swimming pool, and someone is drowning and they're flailing their arms and they're crying for help, and everybody else around the swimming pool says, well, it's the lifeguard's duty. The lifeguard. Somebody call the lifeguard. Are we going to let the person drown, or is somebody going to jump in and save them? This is about civil rights. This is about civil rights. Why? Why do we need to fight for civil rights? Ruby Sales, I'm going to call some names of some people that you may not know. The Selma to Montgomery March registering voters in Lowndes County, Alabama, and her arrest in Haynesville, Alabama. She had PTSD from watching Jonathan Daniels, a seminary student who saved her life, and discusses her opinions on African American history. Latifah Simon won a MacArthur Genius Award for helping impoverished and formerly incarcerated women. In March of 1955, 15-year-old Claudette Colvin, a student from a black high school in Montgomery, refused to move from her seat on the bus, even though the law said she must give up her seat to any white person who came and asked her for the seat. Rosa Parks, in December, 9 months later, broke the Jim Crow law, sit on the back of the bus. Bayard Rustin, who's the author of the Nonviolence Strategy, went to Alabama as the bus boycott started and taught Dr. King and others how to use the nonviolence strategy in defeating racism and Jim Crow. Fannie Lou Hamer, who was refused a seat on the floor and finally said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. The self-sacrifice and the commitment of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, who fought to make sure that immigrants, that people who worked in farms were treated humanely and got a decent wage for a decent day's work. Mahatma Gandhi, an Indian lawyer, who fought and led a successful campaign for India's independence from British rule. He inspired many movements around the world for civil rights. He said these words: first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. I don't know how many of you all have heard this story, but let me take a couple of seconds to say this. I've often been asked, why do I fight so hard for civil rights? And I believe that I was born into this fight because when I was born in a freight elevator in a hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana, because my father was refused admission through the front door and told to go around to the back door because, quote, colored people couldn't come that way. And by the time he rode all the way around the hospital to the back door and got my mother into the elevator, and there was all kinds of trash on the floor, all kinds of medical trash. There was all kinds of food trash on the floor. And my dad said as soon as the door closed, my mom passed out. And when the door opened up, the nurses were standing there, and they said, oh, the baby's head is already out. I was born amongst trash because of racism. I was born amongst trash for Jim Crowism. I was born amongst trash when we were still fighting for civil rights. And I'm fighting for civil rights today. In 1969, myself and 15 other students integrated an Alabama high school. And when we first got there, the very first day of school, the bus rolled up, and guess who's standing there in full regalia? The Ku Klux Klan. Everyone else was afraid to get off the bus. And as I started to get off the bus, they said, Patty, don't do that, you're going to get killed. I said, if they kill me, name a holiday after me. And I got off the bus, and I went through the Klan. Walked into the auditorium and sat down. I was suspended and almost expelled from school because I would not allow them to call me the N-word. You know the N-word. I would not allow that. I would not allow it because I am a human being designed by God, and my divine design refuses to give in to racism and Jim Crowism. Why do I say this is a civil rights bill? It is a civil rights bill because it says that if you have more than 275,000 people who live in the city of North Las Vegas, you ought to have enough sense to know that more than 4 people are required on the city council. I've often asked the question as I listen to people talk about why this was not a good bill. Everything from, well, it should have gone before the charter committee. And I've already told you why it didn't. Why would people fight against adequate representation? Why would people refuse 275,000 people, less the 10 who are fighting against this? Why would they refuse to allow them to have adequate representation? This is not new. This is not even revolutionary. If it is, it's only revolutionary because in the 21st century, we are still fighting for equality. And we are still fighting for adequate representation. And I stand here today, in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now, everybody will have a right to either vote yes or no, and you'll have your reasons to do yes or no. But I'm asking you to understand that this bill, Senate Bill 184, is not about anybody in the North Las Vegas government. It is about the people who are asking for adequate representation, who could have had it in 2011 when we got CD4, because the folks in North Las Vegas knew that the city had grown. Could have had it in 2021 when the census report came back and said we've got more than 262,000 people. If you want to do the right thing, you don't wait for a bill like this. You do the right thing. And when you don't do the right thing, we have been sent here by the people that we represent to pick up the slack. Now, there have been several bills that have come before the Senate asking us to do some things that local government would not do. So to fall back on, I'm not going to do it because local government should have done it, is disingenuous. This is a civil rights bill. And I hope and pray to God that everyone that has looked at this bill, and if you look at it again, you will understand 275,000 people. It's been 53 years since the city of North Las Vegas has opened the charter and looked at adequate representation for the people. One last thing. North Las Vegas is the most diverse city in the state. We are third in line in terms of population. We have 4 city council members. Reno, who is behind us, has 262,000 people, and they have 6 wards and a mayor. Just a couple of things different, and I've said this to people who want me to stand down. And anybody who knows me knows I don't stand down, not when it comes to civil rights. I don't do that, and I don't back up. Reno has a mostly white population. The city of North Las Vegas is minority-majority. Why wouldn't anyone want the majority-minority city in the state to have equal representation? Why? Why would anyone vote against a civil rights bill? Dr. King said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself. And in the end, it is the silence of our friends that we will remember, not the anger of our enemies. Senate Bill 184, for all of the lies and the preposterous scenarios that have gone around this building and other places about what this may be or may not be, we have a chance right now, and history will record our vote. History will record our vote. Will we stand up for civil rights, or will we cower in the face of power that says don't do it? I'm urging you to fight for civil rights. I've done it all my life, and I ain't tired, and I ain't through yet. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finally got it turned on. I rise in opposition to 184, and it's clearly not about any civil rights or any right or wrong. I just feel that, and I had hoped we would get there with this bill, the ability to leave the charter committee in place, put some guidelines on it if we had to, some sideboards that said, hey, you have to meet, you set your own agenda, but to disregard the fact that this is a charter city with a charter committee and then bring it to this body to restructure what that city council looks like, I feel is wrong. I ask you to vote no.
Any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 13. The nays are 8. SB 184 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 192, introduced by Health and Human Services, revises provisions relating to county hospitals. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 5, end of subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 192 changes the name of a hospital advisory board to a hospital governing board and requires such a board to adopt bylaws and related policies and procedures. Additionally, the bill expands the topics that may be discussed in a closed meeting of a board of hospital trustees or hospital governing board to include privilege or confidential matters in deliberating a character, alleged misconduct, professional competence, or physical and mental health of a healthcare provider, and a report related to conditions in participation in Medicare or Medicaid programs. Lastly, the bill authorizes a board of hospital trustees or hospital governing board to employ dentists and fix their compensation. Thank you so much.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the nays are 0. SB 192 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 302, introduced by Senators Orenshaw, et cetera, revises provisions relating to health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 5, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, President. Senate Bill 302 addresses an issue that affects the lives and well-being of many of our constituents here in Nevada, as well as across the country. Removing gender-affirming healthcare access for transgender and non-binary Americans has been the focus of multiple lawmaking bodies across the United States in recent years, especially in the last 12 months. This is in spite of the fact that removal of gender-affirming care for those vulnerable groups that seek this care causes long-term damage to mental health. According to research from Stanford University, which looked at data from a survey of more than 27,000 transgender adults in the United States, gender-affirming care is beneficial from a mental health perspective. In a 2018 position statement, the American Psychiatric Association noted that discrimination and lack of equal civil rights is damaging to the mental health of transgender and gender-diverse individuals. Gender-affirming health care is imperative for mental health, especially because, as the Anti-Defamation League points out, gender-affirming hormone therapy has been shown to significantly decrease suicidality among transgender youth, and gender-affirming care, including social, medical, and legal aspects, has been shown to improve the overall mental health of transgender and non-binary people. Senate Bill 302 will address the increasingly grave environment presented by state governments across the country who seek to remove access to gender-affirming health care. Senate Bill 302 will protect medical professionals in Nevada and those who come to our state who have provided vulnerable communities in the transgender, non-binary communities access to gender-affirming health care. And I believe Nevada, Mr. President, has a chance to really take a stand for what is right with Senate Bill 302. And I'd ask everyone to just imagine if they went to see their doctor, they went to see their health care provider, for them, for their family, and recommendations were given which are in line with these recommendations from the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, and a state legislature says that you're now committing a criminal offense or you're now committing abuse and neglect. And I would ask everyone to look into their hearts and please support Senate Bill 302. Nevada cannot stand with what's happening across the country.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 13, the nays are 8. SB 302 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 330, introduced by Senator Lang, revises provisions related to health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 9, this act becomes effective on January 1, 2024, and a bill.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 330 requires certain private health insurance policies covering mammograms to provide coverage for breast cancer screening and diagnostic imaging tests for eligible persons without requiring any deductible, copayment, coinsurance, or any other form of cost sharing. In addition, the bill requires public employees benefits program and plans of self-insurance for employees of local government to provide coverage for mammograms every 2 years or annually if ordered by a provider of health care for women 40 years of age or older. A health insurance policy issued or renewed after or on January 1 of 2024 must include the required coverage imposed by this measure and any provisions that conflict or void. This bill becomes effective January 1, 2024.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the nays are 0. SB 330 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 362, introduced by Senators Neal and Flores, revises provisions relating to public safety. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 8, end of subsection 3, end of bill.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 362 requires that if a person who is in custody of a peace officer indicates that he or she cannot breathe, the peace officer must ensure that the medical aid is rendered to the person by an appropriate medical practitioner as soon as practicable. The bill also provides that the Department of Motor Vehicles may adopt regulations governing the use of a single symbol on a driver's license to indicate that a person has a certain medical condition or conditions to maintain a record of such so that they will be accessible by law enforcement agencies. The department also has to make available information on the website regarding how a person may obtain a license with such symbol printed on it. Lastly, the bill requires law enforcement agencies to adopt policies preventing a peace officer from weaponizing copyright work to interfere with the sharing of recordings made by a peace officer while on duty. And it is effective on October 1st, 2023. And then for regs and other administrative tasks, January 1st, 2024.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the nays are 0. SB 362 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 388, introduced by Senator Scheibel, revises provisions relating to certain public employees. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 5, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023, end of bill.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 388 addresses collective bargaining for certain groups of employees in the classified service of the Executive Department of State Government. Specifically, the bill requires subjects of such bargaining to include whether the payment of the employee's portion of the contribution to the public employees retirement system must be made in lieu of equivalent basic salary increases or cost of living increases, or both, or counterbalanced by equivalent reductions in the employee's salary.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 13, the nays are 8. SB 388 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 411, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, makes various changes related to services provided to persons with autism spectrum disorders. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 4, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023, end of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, President. Senate Bill 411 authorizes the juvenile court in judicial districts across the state to establish a program for children who are either diagnosed with or who are suspected to have autism spectrum disorders and who are alleged or adjudicated to have committed a juvenile delinquent act to participate in this therapeutic diversion court program. The bill sets forth eligibility criteria for such a program and provides for informal supervision on probation for such children as appropriate. And just a personal comment I'd like to make to the chamber. There is a program down in Clark County called Detention Alternatives for Autistic Youth. It was started by Judge Bailey down in southern Nevada. And it's been very, very successful in trying to divert children from being caught up in the delinquency system, spending time in juvenile detention, or even going to a youth correctional facility. Recidivism rates have been very low, and a lot of children have connected with the services that they've needed for years, but either somehow it wasn't caught or the families didn't realize. A lot of the kids get neuropsych evaluations and end up getting the help they need. I'd urge their support, everybody's support for this, and hopefully we'll see therapeutic diversion courts for kids on the spectrum across the state. Thank you.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Senate Bill 411. I appreciate the work that the senator from District 21 has done over the years for autistic children, and I think it makes a lot of sense and will be very helpful. Thank you.
Are there any other remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the nays are 0. SB 411 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 4, introduced by Health and Human Services, revises provisions governing certain programs to pay for prescription drugs, pharmaceutical services, and other benefits. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 5, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 4 authorizes the Department of Health and Human Services to provide grants or enter into contracts or intergovernmental agreements financed by the Fund for a Healthy Nevada to pay or subsidize the cost of prescription drugs, pharmaceutical services, and certain other benefits for Nevada residents. The bill also authorizes the department to establish regulations on the eligibility criteria for such residents and removes the requirement that the funds be limited to the use of seniors and persons with disabilities. Lastly, this bill requires the department to submit expenditure reports annually rather than quarterly.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 20, the nays are 1. SB 4 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 23, introduced by Government Affairs, authorizes an amendment of a redevelopment plan to include the removal of an area from a redevelopment area under certain circumstances. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 493, proposed by Senator Flores.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 493.
If no one objects, so ordered. Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Amendment 493 to Senate Bill 23.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 493 puts a pop cap on Senate Bill 23.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 23 is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 43, introduced by Health and Human Services, makes various changes relating to services for aging persons and persons with disabilities. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
There are none. Section 7, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 43 requires the Aging and Disability Services Division of the Department of Health and Human Services to update the strategic plan for persons with disabilities as it determines necessary. The bill revises duties of the Nevada Commission on Services for Persons with Disabilities, abolishing the previous 5-year strategic plan and authorizing the Commission to develop a statewide plan to improve services to persons who are deaf, hard of hearing, or speech impaired. The bill authorizes the governor to appoint any officer or employee of a county or city government, not only members of the governing body, but to 4 positions of the Nevada Commission of Aging representing a city or a county. This bill is effective upon approval.
Are there any remarks on the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the nays are 0. SB 43 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 211, introduced by Senators Harris, etc., revises provisions relating to marriage. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 496, proposed by Senator Harris.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Amendment 496 to Senate Bill 211.
You've heard the motion. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment number 496 to Senate Bill 211 clarifies who is responsible for submitting the corrected, amended certificate to the county recorder or clerk as appropriate.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 211 is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 261, introduced by Senator Neal, revises provisions relating to local governments. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 492, proposed by Senator Neal.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt amendment number 492 to Senate Bill 261.
You've heard the motion. Senator Neal.
So the change to the bill basically says that upon a timely request, 2 or more local chambers of commerce or trade associations or any combination thereof may request a workshop.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 261 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
That concludes Order of Business 13 on the first agenda.
Order of Business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a moment to remind everyone, all my colleagues, that next Tuesday, May 2nd, to mark that on your calendars because that is Alumni Day. The Assembly will be hosting the Alumni Day festivities this year, and further details will be provided when they are available. But for those of us who have been with us, Alumni Day is a fun day here at the Legislature, so mark it on your calendars, and we'll look forward to some good festivities on the 2nd.
Any other remarks on the floor? Okay, we will take a quick recess before we go to Agenda 2. Senate is back in order. We're on agenda number 2. Order of business 4, reports of committees.
Mr. President, your Committee on Education, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 158, 292, 313, and 347, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Roberta Lang, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 164, 303, 334, 346, 422, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Dallas Harris, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Judiciary, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 35, 38, 234, 266, 294, 321, 343, 367, 379, 407, 415, and 417 has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Melanie Scheibel, Chair. End of reports.
Order of business 8, waivers and exemptions.
Notice of exemption, April 24th, 2023. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Senate Bills numbers 185, 246, 385, and 435. Signed, Wayne Thorley, Fiscal Analysis Division. End of notices.
Order of business 12, second reading.
Senate Bill 20, introduced by Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to the process for filling a vacancy in a Board of County Commissioners. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there amendments to the bill?
I have amendment number 524, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 524.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption of Amendment 524 to Senate Bill 20.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 524 creates a process for filing a vacancy on a county commission, either by appointment made by the governor from a list provided by the county through a special election or by a county pursuant to the process established by ordinance.
Are there any remarks on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 20 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 82, introduced by Senator Daley, revises provisions related to public works. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 457, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 457.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 457 to Senate Bill 82.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 457 provides that requirements for employing apprentices are applied on the basis of public works performed during a calendar year instead of an on-per public work basis. Makes contractors or subcontractors responsible for maintaining and providing any supporting documentation that demonstrates a good faith effort to employ one or more apprentices for a certain percentage of the total hours performed on a public work. Requires a contractor or subcontractor beginning in 2025 to submit an annual report to the Labor Commissioner regarding the employment of apprentices, and creates a penalty schedule for violations of certain provisions relating to the requirements for a contractor or subcontractor to employ one or more apprentices for a certain percentage of the total hours performed on a public work.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 82 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 105, introduced by Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to the Department of Corrections. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 458, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 458.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 458 to Senate Bill 105.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 458 revises the Department of Corrections will remain exempt from the requirements of the Nevada Administrative Procedures Act except as provided in NRS 209.221 and 209.2473, and for the administrative regulations pertaining to fiscal policy, visitation, and mail and correspondence.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 105 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 118, introduced by Health and Human Services, revises provisions relating to public health. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 351, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 351 to Senate Bill 118 updates the definition of a health authority and requires money from the tax on tobacco products other than cigarettes to be allocated to a public health improvement account within the state general fund.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 118 as amended is ordered reprinted and grossed into the general file.
Senate Bill 140, introduced by Senators Hansen, Goicoechea, Bucks, Titus, and Stone, revises provisions relating to the distribution of the excise tax on live entertainment. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Is there an amendment to the bill?
I have amendment number 507, proposed by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development.
Senator Neal.
Thank you. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Neal.
SB 140, I move to adopt amendment number 507.
You've heard the motion. Senator Neal.
Amendment number 507 to Senate Bill 140 deletes the provisions of the bill and instead allows an eligible county to request an allocation of the live entertainment tax to reimburse direct and indirect and incidental costs associated with certain events organized by a nonprofit corporation or tax-exempt corporation.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 140 as amended is ordered reprinted and grossed into the general file.
Senate Bill 155, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, revises provisions relating to homeless persons. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Is there an amendment to the bill?
I have amendment number 478, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 478.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 478 to Senate Bill 155.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 478 deletes Section 1 through 3 and clarifies that a person charged with certain misdemeanors associated with homelessness who shows sufficient evidence that they are homeless may be ordered to complete a program of diversion, a specialty court program, or any assistance deemed applicable by the court, sentenced in accordance with statute, and exempt from fines, administrative assessments, or fees related to the charge, and provides a definition of sufficient proof of homelessness, permits but does not require justice courts and municipal courts to create treatment courts for prosecution diversion of individuals who are chronically homeless, and makes various conforming changes.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 155 as amended is ordered reprinted and grossed into the general file.
Senate Bill 162, introduced by Senator Scheibel, provides for the establishment of polling places in county and city jails. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 364, proposed by the Senate Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 364 to Senate Bill 162.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adopt Amendment 364 to Senate Bill 162.
You've heard the motion. Senator Orenshaw.
The amendment requires a person who administers a county or city jail to establish a policy that ensures that a prisoner in the jail who is a registered voter may vote in any election in which that prisoner is eligible to vote. On or before October 1st of each odd-numbered year, a copy of each policy must be submitted to the Secretary of State and the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau. The amendment also requires the adoption and submittal of similar policies for the 2024 presidential preference primary election.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 162 is ordered reprinted and grossed into the general file.
Senate Bill 185, introduced by Senator Neal, establishes provisions relating to businesses. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 461, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 461.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 461 to Senate Bill 185.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 461 revises the definition of micro businesses. It requires a business opportunity outreach unit to coordinate with state and local agencies to establish a database of minority and women-owned businesses, businesses owned by persons with disabilities, and local emerging small and micro businesses, and requires the administrator of the purchasing division of the Department of Administration to establish procedure where possible to prioritize receiving proposals for or bids on contracts for goods and services from local emerging small businesses, including micro businesses, and to encourage awarding contracts for such businesses.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 185 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 204, introduced by Senators Danyate, Neal, and Stone, and Assemblywoman Duran, etc., provides for the limited practice of medicine by certain medical school graduates. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 233, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 233 to Senate Bill 204 requires an employer of an associate physician or associate physician, osteopathic physician to credential and bill for services rendered in the same manner as a physician assistant. It authorizes the State Board of Pharmacy to distribute registration certificates to associate and osteopathic physicians for the purpose of possession, administration, and prescribing of controlled substances, and requires the supervising physicians to be on the premises and available to assist an associate physician or associate osteopathic physician at all times in underserved rural areas.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 204 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 226, introduced by Senator Cannizzaro and Assemblyman Yeager, revises provisions governing public works of the people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 477, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 477.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 477 to Senate Bill 226.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 477 revises the declaration to clarify the legislative intent regarding novel leasing and financing arrangements or incentives provided by local governments or governing bodies of local governments for development of construction projects, deletes Section 3 and 4, retains the definitions of horizontal construction and vertical construction, clarifies that prevailing wages apply on certain types of projects as if the public body had undertaken the project or had awarded the contract, excludes certain types of construction of affordable housing from prevailing wage provisions, and creates a definition of affordable housing.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 226 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 235, introduced by Judiciary, revises provisions relating to pretrial release. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 344, proposed by the Senate Committee on Judiciary.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 344.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Scheibel.
I move to adopt Amendment 344 to Senate Bill 235.
You've heard the motion. Senator Scheibel.
Amendment 344 to Senate Bill 235 adds a new Section 2 to the bill, clarifying that a court is able to impose additional conditions of release if a person has failed to comply with previous conditions of release.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 235 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 243, introduced by Senators Wynn, etc., and Assemblywoman Torres, etc., revises provisions relating to catalytic converters. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 168, proposed by the Senate Committee on Judiciary.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 168.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Scheibel.
I move to adopt Amendment 168 to Senate Bill 243.
You've heard the motion. Senator Scheibel.
The amendment revises language defining the offense of possession of a catalytic converter, removes language providing for a rebuttable presumption regarding possession of a catalytic converter, revises slightly the definition of used catalytic converter to include any part thereof, adds language providing that a person may provide that he or she is in lawful may prove, that he or she is in lawful possession of a catalytic converter, simplifies the number of catalytic converters one must possess relating to the proposed Category D felony, and lowers from 10 years to 6 years the maximum prison term for the proposed Category B felony. It also provides that payments addressed in the bill may be made by electronic ACH transfer.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 243 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 246, introduced by Senator Neal, revises provisions relating to governmental administration. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Is there an amendment to the bill?
I have amendment number 463, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 463.
If no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 463 to Senate Bill 246.
Heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 463 requires the cities of Las Vegas and North Las Vegas to include in a workforce plan targets to share work opportunities for all economic development projects within the city boundaries with citizens based on priorities described in the bill. The plan must also include engagement and outreach regarding work opportunities from the beginning of an economic development project until completion, and requires quarterly reporting to the City Council instead of each meeting of the Council.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Are there any further amendments?
I have amendment number 486, proposed by Senator Neal. This amendment is consistent with amendment number 463.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt amendment number 486 to SB 246.
You've heard the motion. Senator Neal.
The amendment makes various changes related to the duties of the city clerk and the charter committee. Thank you.
Any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 246 is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 280, introduced by Senator Wynn, revises provisions governing contraception. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 280, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Amendment 280 to Senate Bill 280 replaces the term device with contraception and replaces the requirement of an intrauterine device with a long-acting reversible contraception, and it restricts the amount of a provider of healthcare or hospital that is authorized to require a third-party insurer to pay for such services.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 280 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 298, introduced by Health and Human Services, revises provisions governing the involuntary discharge of a resident from a residential facility for groups. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 355, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 355 to Senate Bill 298 requires a residential facility for groups to provide a resident or a representative of the resident with written notice of the location of a proposed discharge no later than 10 days after providing a notice of a potential discharge, and provides that residential facility groups are not subject to disciplinary actions for an emergency discharge or transfer under certain circumstances.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 298 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 326, introduced by Senator Daley, revises provisions governing elections. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 361, proposed by the Senate Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Senator Orenshall.
Thank you, President. I move that we dispense with the reading of Amendment 361 to Senate Bill 326.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Orenshall.
I move that the Senate adopt Amendment 361 to Senate Bill 326.
You've heard the motion. Senator Orenshall.
The amendment changes the word entities to organizations in NRS 2948.0055 regarding the definition of a committee for political action. The amendment excludes from the definition of committee for political action certain business or organizations that limit their political action to making contributions to a candidate or other committee for political action, who is then required as a recipient to report that contribution. It amends NRS 2948.160 regarding the use of unspent contributions in a future election under certain circumstances where a candidate is defeated but subsequently receives one or more qualifying contributions in excess of $100. Additionally, the amendment amends NRS 2948.365 to require the report to list the name and address of the recipient of the campaign expense or expenditure.
Are there any remarks on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 326 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 384, introduced by Senator Daley, establishes certain provisions relating to the award of grants of federal money by a state agency for the development of broadband services and infrastructure. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 476, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 476.
If there are no objections, Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 476 to Senate Bill 384.
Senator Flores.
Amendment 476 requires an applicant to certify that they will meet certain requirements defined in the bill, clarifies that if the work self-performed by an applicant or a broadband service provider is covered by the terms of collective bargaining agreement, prevailing wages provisions will not apply, and clarifies that any certification provided by an applicant is binding upon the applicant receiving the grant money, and if certain contractors perform any work finances in whole or in part with the grant money, prevailing wages provisions will apply.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 384 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 385, introduced by Senator Neal, revises provisions relating to health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 356, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 356 to Senate Bill 385 requires a home care entity to consult with dietitians to ensure the dietary needs of a patient are understood by both the patient and the caregiver. Requires the provider of healthcare to document the reasons in the medical record of a patient in the event if it is requested but not conducted, and amends Section 9 to require Medicaid to include coverage for additional dental services and polycarbonate lenses.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 385 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 391, introduced by Senator Harris and Assemblyman Watts and Baucus, revises provisions relating to governmental entities. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 468, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to amend to dispense of the reading of Amendment 468.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 468 to Senate Bill 391.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 468 amends the bill to limit the testing of a siren bell or alarm to not more than once every 6 months.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 391 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 429, introduced by Government Affairs, revises provisions governing economic development. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 515, proposed by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Amendment Number 515 to Senate Bill 429.
You've heard the motion. Senator Neal.
Amendment Number 515 makes the requirement of paid family and medical leave apply to a business that has 50 or more full-time employees. 2, the policy must be established by the 8th calendar quarter following in which the abatement becomes effective. 3, the employment period for the employee in order to become qualified for the policy is changed from 90 days to 1 year. And finally, if a business has a policy for paid leave and medical leave for employees on its payroll outside of Nevada and agrees in writing that its employees in Nevada are eligible under the policy.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 429 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 433, introduced by Senator Daley, revises provisions relating to prevailing wages. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 469, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 469.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 469 to Senate Bill 433.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 469 deletes Section 2 and 4 of the bill and most of Section 3, requires the Labor Commissioner to adopt regulations regarding factors to be considered when determining the applicability of prevailing wages, and changes the effective date to upon passage and approval.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 433 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 434, introduced by Senator Neal, revises provisions related to public retirement systems. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 523, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 523.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Flores.
I move for the adoption of Amendment 523 to Senate Bill 434.
You've heard the motion. Senator Flores.
Amendment 523 deletes the word long-term, thereby making all substitute teachers eligible for membership in the public employees retirement system under certain conditions, requires a court in granting a divorce to provide an explanation or ensure that an explanation has been provided to the parties of any provision relating to the disposition of a pension or retirement benefits that will be included in the decree of divorce or any related order, authorizes a court to modify the adjudication of or an agreement settling property rights as a result of the filing of a motion to amend the adjudication or agreement related to the disposition of pension or retirement benefits by the parties to the action, removes references to homemaker in Section 3, and revises the effective date to upon passage and approval.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 434 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 435, introduced by Health and Human Services, revises provisions relating to Medicaid. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 429, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 429 to Senate Bill 435 limits the division to using no more than 15% of the total revenue collected annually from a private hospital assessment for the division's administrative costs for operating the new hospital assessment and associated payment programs. It also provides that any remaining monies collected by the division for administrative purposes shall be reserved by the division to fund services that that improve access to behavioral health care services in the community for recipients with psychiatric and serious behavioral health conditions.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 435 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Senate Bill 444, introduced by Revenue and Economic Development, revises provisions relating to the excise tax on live entertainment. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 390, proposed by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Amendment Number 390 to Senate Bill 444.
You've heard the motion. Senator Neal.
Amendment 390 restores the exemption to sports teams, and then adds a provision establishing that a person who directly or indirectly facilitates resale of admissions to live entertainment is required to collect and remit the live entertainment tax if the facilitator had more than $100,000 in gross sales or 200 or more sales transactions.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. SB 444 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
That concludes order of business 12 on the second agenda.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. May we go to order of business number 9?
We are now on order of business 9.
Thank you very much. I move that Senate bills numbers 118, 140, 162, 185, 204, 246, 385, 435, and 444 from their positions, be taken from their positions on general file and be referred to the Committee on Finance upon return from reprint.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Daly? Oh. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now go on to order of business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests.
Can we get a 1-minute recess, Mr. President?
1 minute recess. The Senate is back in order. We will go to order of business 8.
Notice of exemption, April 24th, 2023. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Senate Bills numbers 162 and 313, signed Wayne Thorley, Fiscal Analysis Division. End of notices.
Order of business 9, Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to take Senate Bill 433 from its place on general file and place it on the Secretary's desk for purposes of further amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Okay, order of business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in recess until the call of the chair.
We are in recess.